left back, left wing back, left centre back, left midfield. What position does Marc Cucurella play? What are his abilities? What are his weaknesses? Can he challenge Ben Chilwell? Are they even competing? Those are the questions. If you want the answers, stay tuned and don't go anywhere. So get in here and let's talk about it. And I'm happy to say that I have my friend Harry in the house. And Harry, I will definitely enjoy putting you on the spot today. I hope you're ready for it. It was your choice. Again, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm a bit nervous now you said that.
We're just going to enjoy it. We will enjoy it. Again, Marc Cucurella, what a signing to me he's been, but that doesn't mean he's perfect. A lot of people are confused as much as I am, but we'll get to that as to what position really will he be playing for Chelsea Football Club, especially now that Graham Potter is our manager. On the Thomas Tuchel, you could argue most definitely you will be the left wing back position. But that's by the way. Let's start by a brief history of Marc Cucurella. I want to know again, if you can, why he hasn't gotten a call up from the Spanish national team as good as we think he is.
Yes, I think he's made one call up for Spain. I think that was against Lithuania. It might have been a year ago. Wasn't that recent anyway? And obviously he hasn't got the call up for this latest round, international round. He did play, I believe, in the Olympics for the under-23s. So yeah, he hasn't got a lot of experience for Spain. But to be honest, we've seen that at Chelsea before. You know, as per the Equator, he's not always been a regular for Spain. They've had some good players. I don't think they're the team they used to be, but I think now he's actually moved to a big club. We've got to remember, Chelsea haven't played many games so far, and when you're a player for Brighton, it's not maybe something that really stands out. So I expect, playing a bit more Champions League football, which I don't think he's had that experience before, that'll help him. And I think eventually, if he puts in good performances, he'll get the call-ups.
Yeah, I hope he gets one. I hope he gets one. How old is he again?
How old is he? He's 24.
24.
Yeah.
And again, you could argue the Spanish national team, they're pretty well loaded in that area. So probably that's why it's been he's found it you could say he's found it difficult to break into that senior national team and stay there permanently. And you say he's gotten a single call up, just one cap for the Spanish national team.
Yeah,
wow.
So just one.
Maybe with Chelsea, the chances of him being part of the team increases. Hopefully he goes again. There's a chance. Again, how many games before the World Cup? I'm not sure, but there's a chance if he plays enough games plus playing in the Champions League, that will, most likely, broaden his chances of making it into the team before the World Cup. I hope that happens for him. Let's get into it straight away. The question I want to ask you is this: what are his strengths?
Yeah, so again, I think we've had this argument before about versatility. So as you said in the intro, he can play in many positions. I actually saw that he's played left midfield before as well. So I don't see him playing that at Chelsea. I think he'll pretty much be either a left centre back or a wing back. Obviously, from what we've seen from Potter's first game, it looks like they might play him more in the central role. But yeah, I think that's definitely a strength. I think, when you've got Chilwell hopefully coming back to fitness, that means that we've got a bit more cover in defence. Obviously, we were quite unfortunate with injuries last year, so I feel we're going to need that cover. I think the thing I really like about him is the way he passes. There's no sort of slow passes. They're all very crisp. They're on the ground, they're hard, they're firm. And it's quite important. I think sometimes, particularly with Chelsea, we don't break teams down because we're just too slow in the build-up. We end up going sideways, back, and we just don't break teams down. I think that's one of his strengths. And he seems quite a quiet person, but actually when you look at his personality on the pitch, he's quite a fearsome player. He does really go in for the tackle. He's brave, and I think he has got that little edge to him. He's quite happy to, put in a shoulder barge, maybe getting a little fight.
Even though he doesn't look it.
No, he doesn't. And, I think when you see a few interviews with him off the pitch, there's been a couple now at Chelsea, and I know his English isn't great, but he seems quite a quiet person. And it all comes out on the pitch. You could almost say the same with Kante to a degree, even though he's this quiet person. If you see his football ability, I know he doesn't get in any sort of fights on the pitch, but he's tough in the tackle. He doesn't sort of, shy away. Actually, in the biggest games, he's always normally one of our better players. So, I'm not too bothered if they're quiet off the pitch. As long as they have that personality on it, then that's good for us.
Yeah, I really do agree with you in terms of his passes usually on the carpet, no matter where he wants to pass the ball to. In most cases, he keeps it on the floor. And I'd love to see that. And he adds pace to it. And it's something I saw after the first game he played for us is this. Usually when Marcos Alonso, when he was still with us, when he had the ball, he doesn't look beyond, you could say just, he doesn't look, usually doesn't look that far further like Cucurella does. Cucurella finds, even when he doesn't see a passing lane close by, he picks out a player who's like 1,000 miles away and finds them. So again, and that's a huge plus for us, which means you can't stop him from playing. If you think you've covered all the passing lane, closer to him, he'd find one further away. And again, I think he's a good passer of the ball. But something I want to ask you, let's get into what he brings to Chelsea. Before I ask you the next question, I want to ask you again, how does he differ from Ben Chilwell?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think so far, I'd like to say he does like to get forward, but he does tend to put his defending first. I don't think any player that's going to play left centre-back, they must be able to defend. I don't think you'd want Ben Chilwell doing that. And, just going back to what you said on Alonso, I think for all the ability he had as a left wing back, he was absolutely great going forward. He didn't really have the legs to cover, and I remember under Sarri when he was in that actual left back position, the defending was pretty poor. He's quite a good defender. I think that's something that people don't really mention. I think the way football is now, we almost expect left backs and left wing backs to bomb forward and score goals. And I know we'll get onto weaknesses later. He hasn't actually scored a lot of goals in his career. And I think that's something he will need to work on. But I think most importantly, he is there to defend. Number one, we've signed him to hopefully, shore up that defence, and we've had a lot of changes. So I think probably the main difference between him and Chilwell, from what I've seen, is really just, I think at the moment, Ben Chilwell's really added a lot of goals to his game. You look back to the West Ham game a few weeks ago now, his goal essentially changed the game. And of course, he got the assist. And I think that's what we're going to want to see from Cucurella in the long term. But, I think it's very hard to compare two players that are very different. And I think the reason he probably signed was because I assume there was some communication with Potter and, probably before he actually got appointed as manager. So, I think they'll play quite a lot together. I know, Chilwell hasn't played much, but we've got to remember he's coming back from a serious injury, and England are playing tonight and he's not in the squad. Some would probably say he should be in over Luke Shaw, but that is a serious injury. Sometimes players, who have done their ACL may have a recurrence of that injury because it's one that is very, very serious. Just got to give it time with Chilwell. But yeah, from my point of view, I think they'll both play together in the long run anyway.
I think, there's a chance that happens. From what we saw against Salzburg, it just seemed as if Potter prefers playing him in the left centre-back position. And plus, I think you could say, of all the players we have, you could say he's the one that understands very well how Potter likes to apply his approach to the game. And again, he was brilliant in the left centre-back position, defending, also going forward. I think there's a chance we see them both on the pitch. I think the misconception from the Chelsea fans has always been, he's a cover from a rotational player for a Ben Chilwell, or he's a backup for Ben Chilwell. The question is, are they really, competing? Are they really competing? Again, I don't know. They're not. You can't say they're like for like. You can't say really Marc Cucurella. I don't think. Do you think really Potter will play him in the left wing back position? I think probably from what I've seen in Potter's first game, most likely, and again predominantly in the left center back position. So, but just get into the question: are they competing? Are they even competing? Let alone being again, fighting for a place.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about them competing, I don't think it's actually a bad thing to have competition for places. I think something that
But
I
is that really the case between the two players? Because one definitely we will never see him in the center back position. Ben Chilwell, that will never happen. Cucurella, he's played there, and it looks like Potter he prefers playing him in that position. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with Potter because I think, you look at that first lineup and you can probably make quite a few assumptions of how we might play. But when you look into Potter's sort of past, he's actually quite flexible in terms of his formation. And I think he'll probably look at it and say, yes, he's got a preferred system. Maybe that is Cucurella as a left centre back. But he might look at this squad in hopefully a few weeks and months if Chelsea ever play again at this rate and think, actually, we might be more suited to a wing back system. I don't think it's probably going to be the system we saw against Salzburg. I think it will change. You know, it's hard. As I said, I agree with you. I don't think they probably are really competing for one position. I think he will play more left centre back. But again, just going back to what I was saying, I don't think it's a bad thing if they are both fighting for one position. At the end of the
No,
day,
it's not.
yeah, and I look back at some, you look at some the Man City squads. They've had some fantastic players that are sitting on the bench that would have played for us. You look at Raheem Sterling and Jesus. They've not really been, regular starters for a little while, and they're almost considered one of our best signing and Arsenal's best signing. I think it's a good thing that you've got players that are going to push each other. I don't like it when you've had players, and this is no disrespect to Emerson because I don't think he ever did anything too wrong, but he always knew he was the backup, and I think you don't want players to be sitting on the bench feeling comfortable and I don't know if this is the case in his one, but he always seemed like someone who was quite happy to sit on the bench. We want players that aren't happy to sit on the bench and have someone who they're pushing each other, because if we're going to catch teams like Man City, which is still the ultimate goal, I know they look unstoppable with Haaland, but the goal is to catch them in a few years. We need players to be pushing each other. We can't have someone who's a definite starter, doesn't play well, and then the backup essentially isn't as good. We want players that are at a similar level in that position.
And that's why I hate using the word or term backup. We want a competition, like you said. I think it's important. We want a situation where if the starting player gets injured, whoever comes in will do better, will do a good enough job, or even do better. But again, given what we're probably, I believe, will happen, I think they will end up not be competing with each other, even though one will primarily play in the left center back position and the other in the left wing back position. But we see what happens. Now, again, it would have been a perfect transition to go from his strengths to his weaknesses, but it's not too late. There's no player on planet Earth that you can talk about and not find some deficiencies. Again, in that player, nobody is perfect. What do you think are his weaknesses, and again, or maybe the areas you feel like he should, do better or improve?
Yeah, so I've sort of briefly mentioned that I think he needs to score more goals. I think he scored one for Brighton last season. Okay, it was it's Brighton, it's a different level now, and I don't think Chilwell was that prolific for Leicester at times. I think probably something it's in one of the games. I think it was West Ham first half. A lot of his corner kicks weren't very good. They just weren't really threatening. And I think people probably don't realise how important, having that set piece threat is. Again, we go back to Alonso as a free kick threat. He was really good at that. And sometimes that's what you need to unlock a game. And actually, I think corners are quite important. We don't see enough goals from corners from a Chelsea point of view, I don't think, anymore. I've always been a bit disappointed with Mount's corner kicks. I always felt Ziyech should have been someone who was quite threatening from them, and obviously now having Cucurella on the left side, I always feel like he could make a difference there. But that's one of the other weaknesses I think he's got. But again, I don't think when I say weaknesses, I think this is just development. He is still 24, as we said. I mean, he has got quite a lot of experience behind him. I was actually looking. I think in 2018, so he would have only been early 20s then. He played 31 games in the league at Eibar. So, he's had a good few seasons now at the top level. I just think that next step for him is just to start adding a few more goals and assists, because I feel like probably in the social media world now, we judge a lot of players on that. And, he's a £60 million player. So clearly without those goals and assists, he's a valuable player. But just that next level to go from a player that maybe is good to someone who's a regular Spain international. I think that's what he's going to need to do.
Yeah, but I think you did put it perfectly well. It's development. It's not really weakness. And plus, you did reference Chilwell's case. He wasn't that much of a goal scorer at Leicester City. Because you could argue in the case of Cucurella, I heard he had, again, some great numbers at Brighton, but unfortunately for him, they don't have good finishes to get at the end of those brilliant crosses. Plus, like you talked about, I think you already talked about how he had pace to his passes and crosses. I think, I think his numbers at Chelsea will improve. And thank you for putting it rightly. It is development, not really weakness. So now I want to ask you again. The question I want to ask you again is again, what do you expect of him as a Chelsea player now? The level has changed. From the little we've seen, you can argue he's capable of upping his game to match the Chelsea level expectations and all that. Again, but I don't think I've said everything just having asked you this question. What are your expectations, for him?
Yeah, well, I think the expectations are probably the same for almost every player. First of all, is to win trophies. When you come to Chelsea, it's a big club. You are expected to win trophies. And I think any player that's not at that required level will, even if they have a great start, suddenly they would be dropped out of the team. So you've got to always maintain a high level. Again, just going back to that development, I think playing in the Champions League will also help him. He's not used to Champions League football. So I think that's probably a big thing for him this season, and there's a few players who I think will benefit from hopefully having a long run in the Champions League. So that's probably something I expect from him. Really, I just want to see the Brighton version of him. Now we've got Graham Potter as manager. The reason he cost 60 million is because of what he done under Graham Potter at Brighton. He's been at a big club before in Barcelona, but he didn't play a lot. But now is the time where he is at a big club. He's now a key player, and he's been signed for the fact that he did really well in the Premier League last year. So we've seen a lot of players, though. I think it's important to remember we've seen a lot of players that have had a great first season in the Premier League and then suddenly just drop off. Normally, strikers probably get more attention for that, but the same with defenders as well. You can have one good season. So it's just maintaining levels for me this year. I'm not too worried about goals and assists. As we said, that'll be something that will come in time, and I think he will do that. I just kind of want to see a player that at least matches the levels that we saw at Brighton, and I think hopefully he'll get better with age. 24 is nothing, and from what I've seen so far, I'd probably say out of 10, he's probably been in 6.5. I want to see him just influence games a little bit more. He doesn't do anything particularly wrong, but I just want him to be that player that, just does something a little bit special that changes the game. And I think he can do it.
Yeah, he can. He has the qualities to do that. He's an intelligent player too. Even though he's not the tallest, he has a great leap in him and all those things. But that's, by the way, just quickly, we have just a few minutes around, but I'm going to ask you this question, that it's pertaining to his future, not in the sense whether he leaves Chelsea or not, whether he continues to play. I think you said you see him as a left centre-back player, not really left wing-back. And again, you could argue that's where Potter intends to use him primarily. Had it been under Thomas Tuchel, maybe left wing-back. Now, the rumors of Chelsea looking to sign Vadio hasn't gone away. It hasn't. Even there was a time Fabrizio Romano reported that, again, he's going to end up signing for us, but he will remain at, again, was it Leipzig? He will remain at Leipzig until June 2023. If he comes in, again, he's traditionally a left centre-back player. And I'm thinking the club didn't necessarily want him, maybe because of Thomas Tuchel, but because he's young and because he's a brilliant talent. If he comes in now, what do you think happens to Cucurella? Again, if anything happens to Cucurella, probably we're moving. Potter will probably be moving further forward to the left wing back position if we're playing with a 3 at the back system. What do you think happens? Because Chilwell comes into play, which means he probably will see less and less games.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'd probably fear more for Chilwell than Cucurella if we sign another centre-back. I think I can see us playing a lot of back fours this season. I think Cucurella probably is a better left back than Chilwell in terms of the balance between attack and defence.
Really?
That's what I reckon will happen. I think we'll end up playing him at left back and we'll go to a back four. It feels ages ago since we really saw that at Chelsea. You know, we haven't played a back four. We maybe did under Sarri, but, you know, under Lampard, we tried it, but it didn't go very well. We were so open at the back. And I think ever since then, Tuchel really did shore the defence up. I think we'll go back to a back four eventually. And, yeah, I think he'll be our left back. I think I saw, speaking of Brighton again, I saw them play Man United last year when they beat them. I think it was 4-0 at home. And Cucurella obviously scored in that game. I believe he was left back in that game. And he looked fantastic, you know, and that was his goal was brilliant. And defensively, though, he was absolutely fantastic. It's just that defensive thing for me with Chilwell. And I think Potter will trust Cucurella more at the moment. In time, that might change. But I still would, even myself, I still have a few doubts about Chilwell as a defender. I think he's better going forward. So I think if it's a back four, which I can see happening once maybe Thiago Silva moves on, I think he'll play left back.
All right. Again, 2 final questions. Now it's time to put you into trouble again. It's your fight. Again, even though I'll tag you on Twitter, I'm not going to join the fight when it starts. The first question, money well spent, or do you think we're overpaid?
I think ultimately it'll be money well spent. I think if you look at transfer fees now, they're so expensive anyway. You know, you look at, obviously you can look at Lukaku from last year, 100 million. But, you know, we spent obviously a rumoured fee of 70 million on Fofana. These are investments for the long term. You can just look at Cucurella's contract. I think it's a 6-year deal. So provided we get 6 years out of him and hopefully a few more, we've sorted the left wing back position, left back, left centre back, whatever you want to say, you know, potentially for 6-7 years, which is fantastic.
Indeed.
And as we said, I mean, take out that. Let's say we have him for 4 years and he's fantastic in that period. Nobody's going to talk about the transfer fee. And I think transfer fees, you know, we always get a bit bogged down on how much players cost. But let's say Lukaku was great last season and scored 20 goals, and Salah scored 25. You know, everyone would still say, as long as Lukaku played well, it's money well spent. I don't think because someone costs so much more than someone else, it really matters. Ultimately, you just want them to be the person that makes the difference in the team. And I think he can do that now, and I think he'll do it over the long term. So yeah, money well spent.
Okay, here's the one here. Now, the question is, not being biased, I know you're English, Chilwell is English. The 2 players, Ben Chilwell, Marc Cucurella, who is the better player and why?
That's a tough one. See, I really wanted Cucurella. I really did want Cucurella this summer. There was 2 players I wanted in particular who weren't maybe standouts, and it was him and Chukwuemeka. And I would probably say all round, right now, Cucurella. I still would worry about Chilwell as a left back. You know, it's hard to judge because I feel under Frank Lampard we weren't very good defensively, and even Reece James looked terrible at times at just right back. But I thought Ben Chilwell looked really open at times as a left back, and it was only really when Tuchel came in and he put him in a left wing back role, you really saw that special partnership last year. You know, and it was unfortunate the injury happened. But I would worry about Chilwell in a back four. So I'd probably say if you're just going all round, I'd say Cucurella.
Thank you for your honesty, because it's not easy not to be biased. Again, Harry, I cannot thank you enough. I think it's been a brilliant discussion, and I hope to bring you back with another episode of the Chelsea Player Profile. And if you're watching, please look at Harry's handle on the screen. And I have to tell you this: you will never see another funnier. Again, the unique thing about Harry's tweets is that it's factual and yet funny at the same time. Make sure you follow him. Again, you will enjoy, seeing his tweets, and you will thank me later. Again, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and also do share with whoever follows you on share on whatever social media platforms where you have presence. I cannot thank you guys enough. I hope to see you guys next time for another Chelsea Player Profile show. Thank you. God bless us all, and bye.